Hello, happy whatever moment of the day it is when you watch this. In the following letters, we will analyze Love of Loss and Vice Versa, a short piece of creative nonfiction written by the author Yowie Chin in 2017. Through a first-person point of view that generates intimacy and invites the reader to engage in the protagonist's feelings and thoughts, the story talks about the narrator's experience when her ex-boyfriend dies, drawing on memories, reflections, dreams, and definitions of the word sighing, which we will explore later on to convey the text's main argument. By loving someone, we take the risk of potential loss, grief, and pain that affection is always bound to. While one could argue that this is a piece about alcoholism, domestic abuse, the challenges of moving on, or even the death of a loved one, the creative choices behind the story's narrative say otherwise. The author made a conscious decision not to tell the story in a chronological order. It is divided in 10 pieces, each of which can be classified as a memory, either of the relationship or the process of his death, a dream, or a definition. In either category, all of these are somewhat vague, abstract, focus on sensorial details, and rely on a kind of lyrical interpretation to be fully understood. If the plot was the most relevant thing, we would be given more elements to fill in the missing pieces, and the scenes, thoughts, and feelings would pass onto a secondary plane. This way, we can assert that the value of this story lies in the overall aftertaste and interaction between its parts. Chin uses the circumstances to illustrate different ways in which we can lose a loved one, being the most obvious one their death, but not less tragic is the end of a relationship, or the most subtle one the absence of mind, which can be caused by an addiction, a disease, or the mere way of life. To have a further understanding of the text, it is relevant to look at the writer's background. Yowie Chin grew up in a household in which the women around her used Chinese as a secret code to talk about matters that didn't concern children, but this only sparked her curiosity for the language, giving rise to an artist that uses the intersection of text, narrative, and visual art to put forward her explanation of the world, encrypted across tongues and disruptions. The most obvious way in which her context comes to light is in the presence of the word sighing. Common to Southeast Asian languages, it is a triad of meaning. It is used to address a person for which we feel affection. It describes a kind of love bound to sadness, tenderness, and pity, and at the same time, it is an expression that designates regret, shame, and of course, loss. Understanding her poetry background allows us to make sense out of the lyrical elements present in her work. Here, we see a poem she wrote intended to be performed, and we can notice that a distinct part of her style is in the use of alliteration and homophones to show equivalences. By catching our attention on that specific, spontaneous, and perhaps odd relationship, she gives birth to a third emergent meaning that collects the surprise, as well as the satisfaction that follows when we understand that these two words are, indeed, tied together by something deeper than the similarity of their sounds. She starts with a dream and ends with a definition, creating a contrast between what we expect or hope for love to be and what reality presents us with. And this final definition is not any definition. It puts together the two meanings of sighing, letting us with no way to know which one is supposed to have each meaning, hinting that it doesn't really matter.